Jim Joyce, you know, seeing you back on Zoom versus being able to see you, in real life,
Yeah.
you're much better looking in 3D.
Same here, man. Same here. Same back at you. And this has been a whirlwind tour. So you've been on the road. When are you back? When are you back? When were you back? Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, Marty and I took, for the viewers tuning in, we were at the Health Excel gathering, which the team has done an amazing job pulling it all together. And we were in Dublin, and Marty and I did a selfie that we sent to Marina, saying,
Right.
sober in Dublin. Both of us just didn't feel like drinking. So I got back the next morning after your dinner, and so I'm back in Barcelona. This is actually our co-working space where you can rent rooms. So this will be our location of our Your Coach board meeting in 2 weeks, and some people are actually coming in person.
Nice.
Yeah, and then I'm heading back out with actually part of the Your Coach team to Frontiers Health in Milan next Thursday and Friday, the 11th and 12th. Not too late.
Fantastic.
There's still some
tickets available.
3D spots available because there's a limit on how many people.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they're almost at capacity, but shout out.
Okay. How are they feeling about it? I know you're involved in kind of helping them figure it out.
I think the mood is great. I think everybody's excited, pending any quote unquote flare-ups that we could and should be expecting as the C-19 has not left or going anywhere, right? So anyway, and it's good to see, on one side, Marina and I were walking today, and it's good to see tourists around. As a matter of fact, the next person, I don't even know if you know this, I told you who it will be, but himself and his family are tourists. So here in Barcelona. So this discussion, I'm going to let him in. Aman Bhatti, who I actually met through our dear friend Anish Shindori, so who was also on the shot with us. And there's Aman.
Hey, Mom.
Hey, Jim.
Did you guys ever meet each other? Yeah.
Yeah, virtually, right?
Virtually,
in person as well, or just virtually?
Virtually. I think we may have crossed. You were at Health, right?
No, I didn't make.
No,
didn't make Health.
Health Excel. Health Excel, probably.
Health Excel. Yeah. We did something with Health Excel together, Jim.
Yeah, we did two things. You were nice enough to join another advisory session on direct to consumer. That Health Beacon was kind of coordinating.
Yes.
And then we did something else together, another event. But
another panel. Yeah.
Delighted. I feel like I know you. Delighted to see you on a happy Wednesday.
Yeah, and so Jim, just so you know, it's like a double or even triple happy Wednesday for Aman, right? Because it's his birthday and he's doing the shot with us. And as a matter of fact, I will have to take an actual shot. I did bring hold up here. Okay, so we will take a shot.
I think my birthday is the excuse for Eugene.
Wednesday.
Cheers!
Wednesday
I got my hotel complimentary bottle of water. Yeah.
Well, cheers.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Usually, they have me working so hard. I've had to reduce my alcohol.
That's one. Secondly, Aman, we were trying to actually, because we're meticulously unproduced, Aman is actually with his whole family for his birthday. All right, here in Barcelona. And we were going to try to pull what Jessica and I did, kind of be on different sides of it, but then just got too complex. So this recording stands between us and the drinks and to celebrate Aman's birthday. So
yeah,
awesome.
My kids decided to prioritize, and my wife to shopping over Eugene and I trying to coordinate meeting up physically. So, but no, really happy, and again, honored to be here. Thank you very much, Eugene and Jim, for your time.
Yeah, happy birthday, man! Great to spend it with you.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I was listening to what Eugene did at the health conference is Jess DeMassa took over. So I feel bad about this, Eugene, but I have to admit, I only just listened to the full episode on the way into work today, and I was laughing. I was laughing. I thought it was great, I was like, oh wow, I actually like listening. You know, I really and this is actually pretty decent, the show. You know.
That's because you weren't there. Just kidding.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not
I'm
the
on
same
last
without
week.
you.
We're like 70 something episodes deep here.
Right.
You'd probably know, I don't know if you know the history, but it's like, this was a total, kind of life hack, during the 2 years we've had together of us just trying to stay motivated and
And sane.
No, I enjoy the episodes, and no, I appreciate you guys doing this. This is
But let's get to you,
Right.
Aman, because again,
Yeah.
let's not force ourselves to make this as the shortest episode, but I'm thirsty. And I know, we need to celebrate. The millions of viewers and listeners, tell us about Aman and who you are, and yeah.
start way back, fetus level. Where am I going?
I mean, it's up to you, wherever.
Right.
Wherever you want to start.
I was my probably my parents' second mistake. The first one being my sister who's in the middle, and my brother who was planned, or I don't know, the other way around, maybe, but or maybe all three of them. Yeah, so born in Queens, New York, grew up in Queens until I was about 5. We moved to New Jersey. Complete shift. I mean, 180 from where we grew up from in Flushing Meadow Park down to, or Kew Gardens, to Marlboro, New Jersey, where farm country, and now I live in farm country, New Jersey, in Chester, New Jersey. I did the same to my kids. What my parents did to me was pluck us up from somewhere and throw them into backcountry where everybody comes apple picking and peach picking. So fortunate enough
stop
to
Barcelona. Next stop Barcelona.
And next up, that's right. They say, well, we'd love to move here. I'm like, well, when? College or now? They're like, it depends, we don't mind. So you wouldn't let me move to Texas during COVID, but you're okay with Barcelona, apparently. I'm trying to get into that tax-free zone. That's really what my goal is. But I was forced, like all brown kids, to become a doctor. So I got my MD and went to the Caribbean, got my MD from Dominican Republic. And got married. We had a baby on the way, was waiting for residency, started consulting in industry, realized that there was a whole career for physicians in the pharmaceutical industry. I had no idea, never knew that physicians are consulted upon or are called upon. I knew that they did research. I thought it was only the academic physicians, that were really kind of bench scientists that were willing to kind of forward medicine, that were getting funded by, large companies and all that. And I basically found a career. Started off in drug safety, hated it. It was probably the closest you could get to seeing a patient without actually seeing a patient, because you see their entire chart, you see everything that they've consumed and what's wrong with them. But I did not enjoy it, and stumbled into basically a career in medical affairs, which has been tremendous. It's been a lot of fun. So now I've stumbled into digital health, and now I'm in digital health. And so I kind of find a way to basically just keep my brain constantly occupied. I think I'll be dangerous if I just sit and do nothing. Probably detrimental to my own health, to be honest. So.
How did you just back up? So DR, a doctor. How did you even stumble and say, "Well, crap, I want to go into the industry"? Like, what was that trigger moment?
Oh, it's the forcing function was simply that, we had a baby on the way, no income, and I actually applied for a job at CVS as a pharmacy tech. And I remember getting rejected. They called me and they said, "You're overqualified," and I'm like, "I just need a job."
Right.
And they're like, "Well, we're looking for somebody who's going to be in this role for 5 years or more." I'm like, who wants to be pharmacy tech for 5 years? And my sister's a pharmacist, right? So, so I was getting rejected from jobs because of the overqualification. And I wanted to do something with my MD. And I think a lot of foreign medical graduates actually end up having this double-edged sword where, you have this degree that is all powerful and able to save lives and help people, but without the without the licensure in the U.S. or residency, is meaningless. And so I think for me, I again very fortunate that My brother-in-law had introduced me to a nurse who was a medical writer, and then she introduced me to a recruiter, and then thing led to another, and next thing you know, I had a 3-month gig in a medical information call center, which was hilarious. It was a warehouse in Toledo, New Jersey.
Really? Yeah.
But
fun.
by the way,
Yeah.
talking about call center, Jim, I don't think I'm trying to remember. I think in college I had a gig also cold calling for donations.
Okay.
And just as a side note, I remember I had a call to this elderly woman who basically said, "I'm sorry, my husband just passed away." And so I said, "I'm sorry to hear that." And the guy who was listening in, the big boss walking around, like, "Always push for more." I just quit and resigned right there. So it was like, I mean, anyway, sorry to derail. I just remembered it, and it's late.
It's all kind of Glenn Ross or Wall Street.
Yeah.
No, so for me, we were calling physicians on behalf of pharmaceutical companies, and we would say, "Oh, is Dr. Smith available?" And the nurse would quickly say, "Dr. Body's on the phone for Dr. Smith." I'm like, no. This is more like I'm
Right.
just calling to give them the latest update on the recent clinical trial by XYZ pharma company.
Right.
I get yelled at by the physician on the phone. "I'm seeing patients. What are you doing calling me?" Right. So I learned very quickly to call the Bs. The Bs were the ones, and that people had called previously and said it's a busy signal. It could be because it's disconnected. So I sat there for like weeks just calling Bs, and then I got caught.
I love it, but that's the entrepreneur. Like, it sounds like you've had this, like, trying to find a job, needs must, get at pharmacy tech, going to DR. That I loved all the angles. It speaks to me for sure. I remember I had a sales job where the guys, and I had no idea how to sell the product. I won't even describe it, but I was in a big sales call center and I'm doing the sales job, and the same thing. And they were like, they all started betting on us and which guy was going to make the first sale. And I said, well, I'll put my money at risk. I'll make the first sale. And I didn't know anything about the product. And what I did is I just went through all the Joyces in the phone book, and I called the Joyces. And I was selling something. You had to go see them in person. So I was calling it.
You're lucky.
Here, Mary Joyce, Johnny Joyce.
We must be family.
You guys, I think, are more lucky than me, because my list would end at like my cousins and like there's not many Borohoviches in the yellow book back in the day.
Like I called all 3 of them. They all said no.
There's something incredibly, like, I always think about selling, like having to kind of have raw human interaction where you're not being, whether it's in a call center setting where you're taking in calls and you're dealing with someone who has an issue or complaint. There's something like, I feel like almost every, anyone going through industry would just benefit from that. Like, a lot of times putting people in call centers, like your health coaches, Eugene, they have to kind of maybe interact with people that it hasn't all been filtered, right? Like, they're not calling you because they have to, That's a real skill.
Yep. No, absolutely. I mean, the sort of the behavior on the customer service side, it's a challenging field, definitely. I mean, think of us calling customer support on the other side of it, right? Especially in US. I'm kind of just zero.
Okay, so now we're back to pharma now. So
you're moving pharma.
We're moving through medical affairs now. So you worked for quite a lot of pharmaceutical companies, or a decent amount, 2 or 3, or.
Yeah. I started off. So I started off on the prescription side, and it was in a small outfit, Columbia Laboratories in in Livingston, New Jersey. A very small company, about 20 people, I think 40 reps in the field. It was a vaginal progesterone gel for infertility. And I was kind of in a role that I got to do a lot of different things. And that's where I realized I like medical affairs, because I was the clinical, the field clinical liaison, if you will. I worked very closely with regulatory around, requirements for the FDA. I worked with the research team being my boss, basically on clinical trials. And I presented, to various types of, I put advisory boards together, presented to various types of physicians on what the use case of our medicines are. And again, worked very closely with marketing. And that's really where I realized that I enjoy that probably the most, being kind of creative about what can we say about our product, what can't we say our product living in the
Mhm.
gray a little bit. I was there about 2 years, and then my CEO came up to me and said, "Hey, I need you to come into the boardroom real quick. You need to present to some bankers about, what our product is and all that." And I said, "Bankers? Why would I present to bankers?" And I found out
Right.
we're selling the company. So lowest on the totem pole, just joined probably most recently, and started applying everywhere. And so I went to, I was fortunate enough to get a role at Reckitt Benckiser, not knowing anything about the consumer healthcare space at all, and ended up in consumer healthcare. I did about 12 years in consumer healthcare.
Wow.
Reckitt, Novartis, GSK, Sanofi, and
Yeah.
I think if I look back, I just kind of stumble into things and don't let go.
Right.
I try to figure out, how can I make the best of the situation I'm in, and try to hone in I still haven't figured out what my skill sets are, to be honest. I think I
Well,
just like talking.
I love listening to you. So you're obviously
Yeah.
a great speaker. You're kind of like you sound like the take this in the most flattering way, but like the Forrest Gump of medical affairs.
Yeah. I do like chocolate.
But also, I mean, I want to contrast. It's interesting because I actually just learned another data point, that while you were at the larger pharma brands, it was been mainly on the kind of the consumer health
Yes.
divisions, right? Which is very different still. And I got to kind of witness it firsthand from the core kind of R&D pharma versus, there's actually in many companies there's no R, right? It's just I&D. And so I think the medical affairs and the intricacies of it are probably different from the peers in the pure pharma world. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
I think it's almost harder because the molecules that we have, everybody has acetaminophen, everybody has dextromethorphan, guaifenesin. If you look at what Mucinex did, I think what they did was fantastic. I mean, you took a molecule that was, as I call it, donkey's years old, right? I mean, like I think the last study was in the 1950s, and they simply just did a pharmacokinetic study where they put it into a tablet that, disintegrated over 12 hours, or released medicines over 12 hours. And that was it. It was just a PK story, 3 peaks versus 1, even flow. And I think it becomes, Eugene, it becomes a little harder because everybody's playing with the same Lego blocks, and there's only so many shapes you can make with the same yellow. Like, I made a wall this way. Like I made a staircase, right? There's not much you can do. And so you have to get very creative. And there is innovation. I mean, I was mainly working on switching products to over the counter. So, at Novartis, we were looking at a cardiovascular opportunity. And that's where we started getting into a little bit about 10 years ago into looking at telemedicine at the time, which was in its infancy, and looking at other kind of, digital tools that can help enable switches. Because what we always say is like the easy switches have been done, meaning things that you can symptomatically feel and self-diagnose have been done. But I was fortunate enough to work on the Flonase switch at GSK, the Flonase Sensimist switch, or Veramis switch, and other switches as well. And so that becomes a little bit more difficult because you're trying to, not only convince the health authorities that, hey, this is safe for somebody to take by themselves, but you also have to convince them that this is something that they could self-diagnose. And the like, but consumer healthcare in general, I think it's very fast paced. We could get a product technically on the shelf in like 4 to 6 months if it's just a flavor change. And even then, you want to talk about why my berry is better than the other brand's berry.
By the way, for our the listeners, not everybody is from kind of the pharma and OTC. Maybe just double click on what is an OTC switch in like 30 seconds.
Basically it's taking a product that's prescription, where it's required a prescription by a physician or a healthcare professional, and you essentially go through a process through the FDA and other health authorities worldwide, where you make this available for general sales, just like you're buying milk and eggs, that you don't need a prescription anymore. So famous switches, again, Allegra, Claritin, Flonase, Nicorette, Nicoderm, all those products were previously prescription. And now they're available now they're available as store brand, but they're available over the counter.
And when you think of this role, this term, just staying, we'll do a little definition thing here. If we think about like medical affairs, that term medical affairs,
Yeah.
is, I feel like it's something it can be as loose as it sounds. It's like, medical affairs we have the person just taking broadly care of a range.
The catch-all for everything.
Yeah.
Range of different affairs.
That's why I was attracted to it. I was like, affairs. Oh, medical affairs. Oh.
But do people get quite like kind of like nuanced about like what medical affairs is this and it's not that, or is it as broad as it sounds?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, Jim. I found that a lot of times we have to explain the role of medical affairs internally, not just externally, but even internally. Different companies have different views of what medical affairs does. I've always viewed it as clinical, and I learned this from Rob Chaponis, who was our head of medical over at Novartis, and we've had the fortune enough to work with my GSK as well. Clinical generates data, medical disseminates the data, right? And that's kind of like at the very high level how you can kind of bucketize, in a sense, the functions. But then from medical, to your point, there's a spectrum of what the services are. I always view it as, our job is to be a latch on, attached to the hip to the sales and marketing functions, trying to figure out what's happening out there in the field. What pushback are they getting from clinicians, from pharmacists, from other healthcare professionals, and how do we use those insights to actually drive our clinical programs? For example, perhaps it's marketing wants to make a claim that our product works in 10 seconds, and we look at the literature and we'll say, we don't have any claims around, we don't have any data to support any timeline efficacy, and so go back to clinical and say, we want to do this study. How much will it cost? How long will it take? And then go back to the business and say, look, if this is, if the ROI is there to do this study, then we would be able to do this phase 4 study. So it's kind of that conduit between, clinical trial world, in a sense, and the medical and the marketing and sales function. That's at the high level. I think, yes, you can get very granular. Is it publication planning? Is it conference planning? Are we doing rep rides, and, who does what? When it comes down to field questions, some companies have medical information functions that then ladder up into medical affairs. Other companies have medical information that's separate. Some companies have no medical information. And so, it really is, I think it's just dependent upon what the company's needs are and the brand's needs are.
Sure. And then I know we'll go into this, and we'll probably, as we move into your AliveCor part of your career here, but that's like a whole nother Pandora's box in terms of how digital health companies kind of adopt some of this pharma, nomenclature parlance and don't, or kind of fumble around with it.
I think when I joined AliveCor as the VP of Med Affairs, there was, again, some structure that we had to put around what does medical affairs mean to AliveCor, and what medical affairs do. And I think we had at AliveCor, we had a chief medical officer who was doing many functions. Jacqueline Tribody, fantastic leader, who I got to not work with, but she had hired me and then had left the organization right before I joined. But when I look back at what she was doing everything from, I think AliveCor was our first company. I know that she was consulting for them for some time, but in essence, she was doing many things. She was doing clinical development, she was doing medical information, product complaint management, R&D support, and medical affairs all in one. And I think, at the time, there was a decision made that, there should have a separate medical affairs function. And that just looked at I think when I joined, we were at 89 publications. Now we're at 160 publications within 2 years.
Wow.
It's fantastic by, thought leaders in cardiology throughout the world. So, Dr. Dave definitely has developed a product that, has high caliber and can be extremely beneficial to the world, and we've benefited by researchers that have been willing to conduct critical research around the utilization of our device for various use cases. And so when you're sitting on so much literature, one needs to kind of start mining and figuring out, okay, what can we say about our product other than what we know, and can we start designing studies, ourselves, and what else can we do with the data that we have at hand? And so, I think there's been a lot of, and I must give a lot of credit to the AliveCor leadership to recognize I haven't seen many medical affairs roles. I think now they're popping up. Not that I'm looking, but I've seen them popping up every now and then.
They're just flowing your way. The
They're
unique
just flowing
medical
my
affairs
way.
guy in digital health.
Yeah. I can't help it. But
Dr. Dave,
yeah.
keep that guy. Keep that guy.
So basically, I think that I have to give a lot of credit to the AliveCor leadership to realize that you need somebody who is able to understand the business of medicine, translate the clinical data, and support the marketing and sales function in being able to promote the product for what it's intended to be used for.
I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong. So I remember I ordered the device as soon as I could. I was kind of fascinated by it, and then I got the Apple Watch insert one, if you remember, the little one, and whatever else. But I been a big fan of Dr. Dave and the device itself. But it's interesting because I remember kind of putting my hat on, my old hat on in the pharma world. I remember pharma companies, including, the company I was with, kind of dancing around AliveCor and many other digital tools, right?
Yeah.
And saying, well, this is fantastic, and upstream, it's great. And, we can diagnose, new therapy, but those models just still were question marks on how do you really incorporate that into the business model of pharma, right? Tools like AliveCor. So I'm curious, where are you guys on that journey, if you can even talk about this, right? I mean, I know many more adopted it, right?
Yeah, no, so for me, when I joined as a head of medical, but a few months into the role, my previous role at Sanofi was as the global head of digital medicine, where my role was to really scout for startups like AliveCor to partner with throughout the world. And, we worked with Plug and Play, and, we also scouted directly. We worked with our leaders of R&D to kind of understand what's the problems that they're trying to solve for their brands, and how can digital solutions, whether they're apps only or physical devices like the CardioMobile, be beneficial in improving patient experience and patient outcomes, and all for the consumer healthcare organization. And one of the things is that I think you're absolutely right. There companies, just in general, this is not one specific company. What I've noticed, when I joined AliveCor, started working with partnerships for pharma, I reached out to Priya, our CEO, and said, I think we should be partnering with pharma companies. And she was nice enough to go ahead and say, what, if I think this is kind of her philosophy. If you see something needs to be done, don't wait for somebody else to do it, just do it. And we were able to put partnerships together with various CROs. Was introduced to Michelle Longmire by Ritesh, our very good friend Ritesh, and was able to reach out to her and say, hey, Medible's the leader in decentralized trials. Our device would be perfect for decentralized trials. And so we were able to put a partnership and collaboration together there. Put one together with ERT, and we have all these other now CROs that we're working with as well. Some can name, some can't name. We're still, but top 3, top 5 CROs that we're currently working with, where a device is being used in clinical trials, in enabling digital decentralized trials. And then we do have a couple of programs that are out there with large pharma companies where our device is being used for supporting products in market, commercial use cases, where you need to screen for a particular side effect, for example, QT. QT prolongation is a significant barrier to being able to prescribe certain medicines, cancer medicines, some new medicines in ulcerative colitis, multiple sclerosis, et cetera. And I think that those have been, fortunately, either through the decentralized clinical trial use cases actually were quite easy, right? I mean, we obviously COVID was a forcing function, and you needed a 6-lead ECG and or the ability to take an ECG when the patient's home. The pharma programs, when pharma approaches us, I find it to be a little bit more easier because it's their idea, and you kind of have buy-in by several people. But there's some use cases that were.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt. Though I want to say there's also there's people reaching out from pharma just to sort of learn, right, and bring something
Yeah.
back to their bosses, meaning you really have to be careful about how much time and where you spend it. So
100%, 100%. And I used to be on the other side of the table. So I know, a lot of times, that's why at AliveCore, we're kind of instilling processes around that now, where we're happy to work together and collaborate. But, I think startups need to think about, the amount of resources. And I think sitting on the other side of the table, this may have been just Aman, not, the organization, but sitting on the other side of the table for many years, I think there's this kind of assumption that, we're this large pharmaceutical company, and, you should be so honored that we're working with you, and, use our logo in a deck, and you should be able to get investors, and, but we want you to use all your resources. We don't care that, you were on a trajectory that was going to go for a, software as a medical device, classification. I want you to take all those resources and now solve my problem. And by the way, I'm only going to give you this much, or if you do, we can give you a press release or something in exchange.
Right. And even that, will they give you the press release? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's a reason why I'm not saying names of various companies, right? But the point is that I think that, to Eugene, to your point, right? It's, there are people out there that want to change the pharmaceutical industry. There are people like us. We were all on the inside, right? I mean, we were all once there, and I think that there are people that want to lead, and they know better, right? They know that they want to be innovative. They know that the world is moving towards this digital world. But you're in this environment where you still have, traditional medicines being made and developed, and that, sell for billions. And it is very hard to be a change agent. And, oftentimes it's just a forcing function of, again, like, well, the competitor is doing this. No, pharma doesn't want to be the first, right? They want to see somebody else do it, and then they want to now. I want it now. I want it yesterday. Make it happen. The purse opens magically all of a sudden when a competitor does something. But but you can't. I think for us, we also just can't wait for that to happen either. And I think by attending things like Health and going to CES, South by Southwest, DTX East, DTX West, engaging with thought leaders and just educating that this could be simple. I mean, our device is sold on Amazon, sold at Walmart. It's made for somebody to just buy without having any physician oversight and training and use. And a lot of devices are like that are coming out. And they're very cost effective, right? And I think it's time for at least pharma to start thinking about how do you take these tools, forget about the more complex tools that still are require somebody to come into the house and set up certain machinery. But I really think that the mindset needs to shift a little bit. That hey, let's try it. Whether it's a pilot, do it under clinical trial. Do it under just a phase 4 study. Do it in a local region, and partner with other companies. Partner. If you have to bring in a national pharmacy chain, a national store chain to enable it, why not? I think everybody benefits, and you will learn much faster.
So sorry, Jim, go ahead, man.
Please go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, so we're at 35 minutes, and I'm anxious to have some Galician food and drink. So I wanted to get to your famous question, but so you went, but also there's one stop in between. So, doctor, back straight into the industry, medical affairs, big pharma world. AliveCore is, I guess we can still call it a startup, right? To a certain extent, even though you guys are large enough.
10 years now. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I've also noticed, which I don't know much about, you're also advisor to Orbit Health, which I think is more of a startup.
Right.
So you kind of now, maybe talk just a few minutes on that. And then I want to get to Jim's question and then go drinking.
Yeah. For me, I think the knowledge that I've been able to kind of garner over these, 12, 14 years of being in med affairs and working in consumer healthcare companies has been, basically it's the same structure, right? When you're trying to launch a brand, it's the same structure of trying to understand, what market you're going in and who you're targeting, and and how do you differentiate your brand over others? And so I was introduced to Orbit by Anish, who will be meeting in a few minutes, hopefully, for dinner, and essentially just was kind of taken aback by the passion of the founders, Franz and Patty, and what they'd like to do is basically very similar to a LiveCore, right? They want to enable remote monitoring for Parkinson's via technology in wearable devices, right? And it allows for screening and identifying patients early with Parkinson's, and then also they're looking at, once a person is diagnosed, that you can better monitor them and better diagnose and better manage them remotely by a dashboard that they've created. And so, I enjoy advising, even investing, in startups that all are focused on changing humanity and enabling people to you don't have to come in physically to be treated, to get top care medicine. Anything that looks at democratizing health in a sense or any aspects of healthcare is what I'm in for. And at a LiveCore, where I head up now the biopharma group. So I moved, I think, one of the things to highlight is, I've moved from my career of being in traditional medical affairs. Now I'm the, head of this business unit within this group in a LiveCore called LiveCore Biopharma, where all we do is partner with pharmaceutical companies, and we partner with, CROs. And that's what I'm also advising Orbit Health on is how do you successfully do those types of partnerships as well? And I think startups need to be aware about how you go about those kind of strategic partnerships and
navigate it all.
Navigate, yeah. You have to know who you're talking to. If you're talking to the head of R&D, the conversation is going to go, going to be very focused on problem, solving certain problems. If you're talking to the commercial lead, very different problem sets that you need to start focusing on and talking about to get their attention. So, but we've been having a fantastic ride here in digital health now.
Before we, I want to sneak this question in. Just before we go to the last question, consumer hardware health tech, and I'm asking for a friend. I'm asking for a friend. Where is the space at? Like scale, adoption. Like AliveCore is like the OG in the space, right? Like this like where is the space at right now? We're on scaling. Just any kind of small words of wisdom.
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons in the sense of going direct to consumer, right? From a scaling perspective, definitely, from an AliveCore perspective, there's definitely a lot that we've already accomplished. We're definitely the leader in remote ECG monitoring. We are shifting now towards the healthcare side and more healthcare professional offerings. In fact, our pipeline is probably more richer for healthcare professional offerings than it is for consumer offerings. And again, as you look at kind of the biopharma route that we've taken as well, shifting away from consumer healthcare. But what we've learned in the consumer healthcare world, it has been fantastic. I mean, the insights that we've been able to get in real time. That's the beauty of being direct to consumer, right? You get, now granted, I remember again being part of on the other side of the table, where it would be like, we don't care what your NPS score is, right? Amazon ratings is not reflective of is not a proper surrogate for clinical data, but it's real time. And you're able to mine those insights and get insights about people really using your products and all. So, I think that, for us, we're just starting, in a sense of what you'll see from us. We're in 42 countries at Alive. I think many people don't know AliveCore. Our products are available in 42 countries. And that's it's a lot to manage. And, but that's the beauty of having a product that's so universal. I keep it in my pocket. I think Eugene is used to be seeing it, but you showing it, but this can be used anywhere.
42 countries, that's a lot of medical affairs.
That's a lot of medical affairs. Yeah, I still have two roles at AliveCore. I'm still the head of medical, and I'm the head of biopharma. So somehow I found time to be in Barcelona.
I don't want to stand between you guys and your drink. So Aman, if you just do a little mental kind of shift with me here, and imagine yourself a young clinician that just completed their medical degree, has been turned down from a pharmacy technician job at a U.S. national chain, has a young family that they're worried about, but then comes up with this brilliant idea and happens to know, a bunch of funders from Barcelona that are willing to fund the idea. What advice would you, and it's a consumer health tech hardware product. What advice would you give to that young founder?
That's a very interesting question. I always wished I was that young founder. I was always, I would always hear those stories
Hey,
about,
you're still young.
somebody,
You're still young.
Yeah. People at a bar. Oh, I met somebody, I drew something on the back of a napkin. Next thing you know, this is a $20 billion company, and you're ringing the bell at the New York Stock Exchange. I think number one is surround yourself with good people. I think it's very cliche to say, but make sure that you talk to as many people as possible, and you kind of are you leverage your network. Trust people. I think trust is big. I'm always one that probably trusts too much, so I can't say be careful who you trust. I've been very fortunate where I think trust has been huge for me. I don't know about trust your gut, because I never trust my gut, but looking back, if I could go back and tell myself something, I always wish I should have gone and got licensed, and would have changed kind of what I would have done, and just been gone into neurology and kind of stayed course. But looking back, I've had tons of fun, and I wouldn't change a thing. But as far as somebody who's trying to if it was old me and was trying to start up something, I'd say take your time. It will come. Things tend to fall. Puzzle pieces fall in place by themselves. If it was meant to happen, it will happen. And I think that if you're trying to force things and take shortcuts, I'm one that took many shortcuts in my career that I've regretted. Again, because I for various reasons we could talk about over drinks later. But I think it's just know that things will happen when appropriate. I've kind of learned that from my brother. That things will happen when they're supposed to, with time. And if it's the right thing to move forward, it'll move forward. If the stars align, they align. And if they don't, it's for a reason. And I think you should be very quick to say, okay, learn from your mistakes, move on, move to the next one, and apply those learnings. So I don't know if that made sense, or if that was helpful or insightful to anybody, but that's
beautiful. It was beautiful.
No.
Happy birthday, my friend. Happy birthday. It was great.
Thank you.
Great
This was a fantastic birthday gift, by the way.
Thank
Also,
you
the
for
only
joining
birthday
us.
gift I got today, and my family's not here around me, but I've gotten 0 so far.
Well,
I think the hotel did a better job. Okay.
Well, listen, and this is our first happy birthday edition of The Shot. So
Oh, there you go.
Right.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
Send me the video.
And last.
Send me the video of the Barcelona waitresses singing "Happy Birthday" to you later on.
Yep, exactly. We'll upload that to the comments of the LinkedIn post. So no.
Right.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
All right.
Yes,
Well, to all the listeners and viewers, thanks for tuning in. Subscribe
Thank you.
and forward it on to others to join The Shot. Cheers.
Thank you. Take care.
Cheers.
See you soon.